As we continue through Chapter 4, we continue to look at quadratics from different angles. So in this lesson, we're going to look at how a transformation of quadratic graphs can look like in our equations. And think back to when we worked through our parent function notebook. This is the first time you saw something like vertex form in this course, and you should have seen it in Algebra 1 as well. So we have y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. So recall that your vertex is h comma k, so the h value is moving the graph left and right. The k value is moving it up and down. And then, of course, our a determines whether it opens up or down, and also whether there is a vertical stretch or a vertical compression. And again, if you forget any of that, go to the parent function notebook from earlier in the year, and that will refresh anything you forgot, hopefully. So most of the form that we've been working with in this chapter, Chapter 4, has been in standard form, and we see that y equals ax squared plus bx plus c is our standard form. And there will be times that we want to work with something in standard form, but there will also be times when we want to work with the equation in vertex form. And so we need a way to be able to convert from one form to the other. And the way that we're going to go from standard form to vertex form is if we complete the square. Okay? So let's take a look at this example here. Go ahead and write it down. We have y equals x squared plus 6x minus 5. And again, we've been so used to solving everything, so pay attention that the directions are not saying to solve, they're saying to put it into vertex form. So I want it to look like this equation up here. Okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to complete the square. So we want to first make sure that the a value is, if it's 1, what I can do is just group these first two terms together. So, and then I'll complete the square with those first two terms. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so we have x squared plus 6x. We group them together, and we're going to say plus the box because we're going to complete the square here. So the way we get the 9 is the same way we have completed the square before. We take our b term, divide it by 2, and then square that. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. And then here is our c value, the minus 5. Now notice here we are minusing our 9. And in the past, when we have completed the square in solving, we add it to both sides of the equation. But notice here, when I'm putting it in vertex form, I'm doing all of my work on one side of this equal sign. So if I'm going to add the 9 on the right-hand side, I have to subtract the 9 on the right-hand side as well to keep it balanced. So now I can just clean up this equation. I have a perfect square trinomial in the parentheses. So that will be x plus 3 squared. And then I have a minus 5 minus 9, which will give me minus 14. Okay, you'll notice with this example we have a 1 in for our a. So let's look at an example where the a value is not 1. Okay, here we have y equals negative 2x squared plus 8x minus 3. And the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to follow basically the same steps as before, but we want to factor out that a value from the first two terms, from the x squared term and from the bx term as well. So I'm going to, there is a GCF of a negative 2 here. So, and even if it didn't go into this 8 evenly, whatever that a is, I'm going to factor that out. Just from these first two terms, I am not going to factor it out from this negative 3. So let's see what this looks like. Okay, so I pulled this negative 2 out, and I'm left with, negative 2x squared divided by negative 2 gives me x squared. This 8x divided by negative 2 gives me a minus 4x, plus whatever, I'm going to complete the square here. We'll get to that in a second. And then I have my minus 3. Again, the minus 3 is outside the parentheses, so we are not going to factor out the negative 2 from that. Okay, so to complete the square, I have my negative 4. I'm going to divide that by 2. and square it so a 4 goes here. But now, if you notice over here, instead of just subtracting 4, I have this negative 2 after as well. And the reason for that is remember, I want to be able to like multiply everything out and get what I started with, which is this standard form. So this 4 in the box, yes, I'm adding 4. However, this 4 is being multiplied by this negative 2. So negative 2 times 4 is actually negative 8. So essentially I'm minusing an 8 on my right-hand side, which means I'm going to have to add an 8 over here in order to keep it balanced. So when I subtract out this 4, what I'm going to do is whatever this A value is, I'm going to multiply what was in the box. And I encourage you to write the boxes out as well. And now all we need to do is clean this up. I bring down my A value, this common factor, and I have my perfect square trinomial here. I'm going to factor that, x minus 2 squared. And then I'm just going to clean this up. Negative 3 minus negative 2 times 4 is essentially negative 3 plus 8, which will give me plus 5. So my vertex is 2, 5. My A value is negative 2, and this is vertex form. Okay. Here for letter C, I want you to try this one here. I want you to pause the video at this point and work on putting this into vertex form. You can use example A as your guide if you forget what to do. Okay, so pause the video now and work through the example. Once you have it, you can hit play to see the rest of this example worked out. Okay, so check your work here to complete the square. Oh, first off, we group our first two terms. We're going to complete the square root of 4, so I add my 4 minus my 4, clean everything up. You should have x plus 2 squared plus 2. Okay, now I want you to practice an example where the A value is not 1. So here is example B. Y equals 2x squared minus 12x plus 17. Take a look at example B. This is very similar to example B. Pause the video now and work through converting this to vertex form. Okay, now that you've done this problem, take a moment and check. First, we need to take the 2 out of the first 2 terms only. And what that does is it gives me this, and I complete the square with a 9, but instead of just subtracting 9 over here, I need that A value in front of it, because it's like I was adding 18. So now I need to subtract this 18 in order to keep this equation the same, which when it gets cleaned up, I get y equals 2 times x minus 3 squared minus 1. I left a few problems from the book to work on. You're just converting standard form to vertex form, so work through them. If you have any questions, feel free to message me on Remind.